Welcome in everyone to another edition of HogvilleNET Hoops. I'm your host, Kevin McPherson. It's Thursday night, May 14th, as we are through the big part of the heaviest part of the NBA draft combine. And why that matters for Arkansas fans and Razorback fans and Hoop Hog fans is that you not only had four players there, so pretty good representation of what 70, 75 players, but a couple of those you're hanging your retention hopes on. When it comes to Billy Richmond in the third, Malik Thomas, both all SEC performers just this past season. Today you had Billy Richmond the third and Trevon Brazile, who can't come back to Arkansas, wrapping up scrimmage play. So we're going to take a look at that. But this is going to be an intel loaded segment as we talk international big men again. We got some new information on a couple of international bigs as it impacts Arkansas and affects Arkansas. We're going to watch highlights. We've got intel on a high school recruit in state in terms of this weekend in the first live eval session, and one of Arkansas's recruiting competitors all of a sudden heating up a blue blood. Historically, just another dueling track, symbiotic symmetry in terms of players at Arkansas and North Carolina are pursuing some more intel there. We brought up the idea that Arkansas might have, this was based on intel almost 2 weeks ago, about 10 or 11 days ago, that Arkansas at that time when we brought it was working on putting together, trying to finalize a visit. And so we got some intel on that as well. Intel on what Calipari thinks in terms of his retention chances and what his thought process is, and it will make sense. Won't seem earth shattering, but it's relayed to me today, so I think it's worth talking about. But just again, this is going to be an intel loaded segment. We're not going to come in here and tell you that Arkansas's got a commitment or leads for any player. So if you're expecting that, but remember the breadcrumbs and the process are all important to get to the finality of whether you get the player or not. You learn something. In the case of Mika Mirren, Arkansas's last commitment, we gave you a nice trail of crumbs to follow in that. Where if you were looking elsewhere, no one had that scent, and eventually he commits to Arkansas. Arkansas is going to get another big man to round out the current roster, but retention's also important to Calipari, and that's why all eyes are on this NBA draft combine. So let's start with that. Let's get into it right now. Again, an intel loaded segment. And this isn't the intel part. This was the fun part. This is not the business today. This was more about Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas pulling up at the combine. They're there, of course, but they weren't competing in scrimmage play, which is taking place Wednesday and then again today, culminating with a couple of scrimmages today. But they pulled up courtside to support Billy Richmond III. It was in between games. Trevon Brazile had just wrapped up his scrimmage. And so these guys were there. About a 5 minute interview with Kristen Peak, who's a really good basketball analyst. And today the coverage again provided by NBA TV. Yesterday it was ESPN. Don't get me started on the on ESPN's coverage. NBA TV actually did a better job, I thought, with its coverage today. But what a nice 5 minute interview here. It was really fun, pretty lighthearted, nothing deep here, but it was good anyway. Asking questions like, both players, who are some players at the college game maybe that are patterning yourself after or paying attention to. And they talked about teammates, DJ Wagner, who's since departed from Maryland. They brought up both TB and Billy Richmond. Nick Pringle. They said he must have been, maybe he's in Chicago because I think Acuff said he saw Nick up there yet the day before. So it looks like Nick Pringle may be hanging around up there. But they went through teammates, even brought up Carter Knox. The one name that was noticeable that was left out when they went through names was Malik Ewan, who's, I guess still in limbo waiting on his waiver. Whether that means anything to read into that or not, I don't know. But he was the one name when you talked about Arkansas's top eight rotation this year that didn't come up. But I thought that was a good part of it. Just being playful. Tell me about the other guy's strengths and how do you stop them? And Leak started off by, saying good things about Darius and then saying, he was the only one that could guard him, something to that effect. And then when it was Acuff's turn again, talking about what we all saw in terms of what the strengths of Malik were, and then saying, basically he'd have, you put him on him, he could defend him. So just having fun with it. So it was a really cool interview. Good stuff. Enjoyed it. If you didn't get to see that, I put it on my Twitter/X page, whatever you want to call it. On the homepage there, I tweeted it out again, roughly 5 minutes. Really good stuff. Go check it out. Here's an image of that tweet, by the way. Okay, so here's the business of what went down. Trevor Brazile, the first on the floor today of the two pro hogs. We'll call them pro hogs for now. Certainly, Trevon Brazile is going to stay that way. He can't come back to college. Billy Richmond III, until he withdraws from the draft formally, if that's what he decides to do later. He's got till May 2017. He and Leak Thomas. That's the deadline. We know Acuff's not coming back, right? But today I thought Trevor Brazile, one of the things we talked about last night, he only got up 5 shots, and I mentioned it. You had a couple of shot chuckers out there, and Jacoby Gillespie, who did play today, Cameron Carr, who already out of Baylor, who already has first round draft grades. He was one of those that says, I'm going to take part in the combine. And I said last night, I'll be shocked if he plays again today because he's got nothing else to prove. In fact, it was what I thought. He did not play today. He was 6 of 12 from three yesterday, had 30 points. Gillespie, 28. Again, they chucked up a lot of shots. We were explaining that as part of why TB didn't get very many looks. How about today? 17 shot attempts. Trevor Brazile can often go, and we saw it at Arkansas, backseat to other players, and you have those games where he's not, shooting a lot and getting into offense, and so you want to see that. 7 of 17 today, nothing earth shattering, but he did a good job. He chucked up some late threes. I think he went 1 of 3 late. Um, and so I think I've got a typo here. I think it says 7 of 16. The official box had him 7 of 17. He was 2 of 6 from three. 9 big rebounds, so rebound shy of a double double. Much better performance today for him than he had yesterday on Wednesday. An assist, a steal, a box plus 14 in 26 minutes. So TB, here's what I put in the tweet, just thinking about everything, his measurements, the agility and athleticism testing, all that stuff we knew to be off the charts. Did fairly well, did okay in the shooting drills. When we looked at shooting here at the combine, nothing that, we're going to go through the totals for 2 games for both he and Billy Richmond here in a little bit. But just in general, I tweeted this out. His combo of measurables, athleticism, agility, shooting, and improved physicality. There were times today early in the game, I thought his defense, we talked about the 9 rebounds, but I thought I think in the first 2 minutes of the game, TB used his body to bump off drivers and get them up, bump them off course, not enough to draw fouls. And then he got back in transition, another play, and broke up an alley oop pass. And so this all happened in like the first 2.5, 3 minutes of the first quarter. I thought, you know what? This guy's really come out on a mission today. He looks better, more active, more comfortable than he did a day before. And I can't remember him cobbling together 3 consecutive defensive plays, or it might have been 3 out of 4 possessions of using physicality in any regard. I mean, if you drove on him, that was his weakness. Yes, he would rotate and help in blocking shots. Sometimes mano a mano, he'd block a guy's shot. He played better dealing with physicality, but he didn't really throw his body in the way of drives. And you saw that multiple times today. So statistically, some of the eye test stuff, getting those shots up, he needed to do that. He didn't have to be a 55% shooter today. He just needed to show that he's not going to just take a back seat and pass up opportunities. He took, for the most part, good shots. He had a nice little 10-footer on the baseline, a little floater. Early in the game, he got several dunks, one on an alley oop. He broke for a steal. You've seen him jump passing lanes at Arkansas. He did it all year long, all season long, and did it again in this game and went in for a dunk. So he had some nice work. Again, hit a couple of threes, 2 of 6, 33%. Good on Trevor Brazile. I thought he had a good day today. And again, I went through the stuff to me collectively. Between the shooting drills, he did just enough. Again, 3 of 5 overall from the field yesterday, limited work, but you'll take that. I mean, so overall, I think when you combine it all and improve physicality, I added that based on what I saw today. I think it keeps him. It likely keeps him in that mid second round range, somewhere between 40 and 50. That's the pocket for being a second round pick. He could slip to the late. There's no doubt about it. This is a loaded draft. But for now, that's how I see it. I could change my mind later, but that's how I see it as of now. Okay. Billy Richmond. 2 days in a row, I've not just been crazy about BR3's performances in the draft combine and these scrimmages. Today, 11 points. I think yesterday he had 8, but he hasn't shot well in either game. 3 of 9 yesterday, 4 of 11 today. He was 0 of 3 from three. I think he was 1 of 3 yesterday from distance, 3 or 4 at the foul line. And so I think he made his only free throw attempt yesterday. So 80% overall, but only 3 rebounds today. Only had 1 yesterday. one assist, one steal, a box plus 13 in 19 minutes. And really, he's got elite energy, motor. I didn't put that in here. Energy, motor, athleticism, agility. All of those things are elite. His measurables are fine. He's a utility. He has utility versatility in terms of being able to defend multiple positions because of the wingspan not blowing me away. I'm not sure that he's how effective he'll be against jumbo wings, but his athleticism helps make up for some of that. And he, in shoes, he's between 6'6.5" and 6'7". But all those things together, I think it's likely puts him in that draft range of mid to late second. And so I could see this based on some of the stuff, just performance wise. I don't think you're going to take these scrimmages and overlook everything else he did. But what the one thing that stood out to me, I mean, he had some good moments today. His ability to get downhill. Remember the agility testing? He was number one in the pro lane drill and tied with Acuff for number one in that three-quarter course sprint. And what we remember at Arkansas last year, remember he would talk about these games where he would just explode, slash into the basket. And I said defenders looked like cones. They couldn't close on him. It was too late to rotate or help because he was a blast going to the from point A to point B. We saw a little bit of that today. Some of his finishes getting to the basket. He also had a putback after an air ball. He just got to the ball. The motor's always running, energy's good. He got a little reverse layup that went for him. He had a really nice step back three yesterday, but one of six. That was the only one that he hit. I think that was the first one he might have taken. So I think he was 0 of 5 since then. Not a big volume, small sample size. But one of the things when I'm paying attention to Richmond, and what I noticed is when you think about Arkansas's dribble drive motion offense, this guy flourished in that because he was constantly in movement on offense. And then when the ball came to him, he was always got that, just like a Duke Thero did. Arkansas coaches that take your first step, lean toward the basket as you're receiving the ball to get a head start. And for guys explosive as him, it helps explain why, again, defenders look like cones. It was like he was playing in a different, in a time warp or something. But when you're the fourth or fifth option in these NBA offenses and sets, which they're running, at the combine, he's the fourth or fifth option. He's the wing in the opposite corner for where most of the action's running. He's standing there. You're supposed to stay there. You only move an offset against your defender's vision if the ball swings and the defender's trying to cover you up on a 3-point shot. You might move and get to that dunker spot, but you're just not as there's not as much movement. And so I really could tell by his body language. It seemed to me that he was unsure a lot of what to do when it was in half court set. He wasn't able to get out and transition like he often does. He didn't have a lot of stocks in two games. In fact, let's look at the averages for both players. So I've got right now my personal thought, just looking at it right now, I can still see mid second round, which you saw the two mocks coming into it for Billy in the 40s, but slipping to 50, 51. I can't rule that out. I also can't rule out one or two teams loving this guy, not worrying about the shooting in these scrimmages, not worrying about some of the awkward stuff, and saying, you know what, we might grab him at 38 or 39. I can't rule that out. I'm going to tell you what the scouts told me a little bit. That's part of the intel, the new intel tonight. But just through the two games, TB 12.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, 26.5 minutes, 45.5% field goal shooting. A lot of that, some of that was just this from three, not crazy from three, 2 of 7 again. He hit a couple, both of them today. Only got one attempt and missed it yesterday, 5-shot attempt. So not going to judge him too harshly. 33% on 6 attempts today. That's okay. I like seeing him take the shots that were there. He did a good job and was aggressive. 75% from the free throw line when you combine the two games. He didn't shoot a free throw today. I think it was 3 or 4 on Wednesday. So good numbers. Good numbers for TB there. Again, relative to whatever you think this is or proves. Billy Richmond III, 9.5 points, only 2 rebound average, 1.5 assists, 1 block, 1 steal. So combined blocks and steals, he and TB were both, big time stock guys last year. TB led the SEC. And just not a whole lot of that in the scrimmages. Okay, we'll live with that. But 20 minutes per game for Billy in these two outings, 35% field goal shooting. Again, how much is he going to be judged on these performances? 1 of 6 from 3. He did good in the shooting drills. He did well, showed well relative to what you might think based on his college percentages, but they were drills unguarded. And then in these scenarios, small body of work. But again, his shots didn't look like they were going in for the most part, right? I mean, he might have had one of the misses that looked decent, and he looked just a little off in just timing and rhythm on some of those. I thought, and again, this is an energy guy, it's an effort guy. I think the setting was a little awkward for him. He didn't look like himself at times. But the 35%, at Arkansas, he was between what, 55 and 60% last year. And this time around, and he didn't take a ton of threes to where that's what's really driving that number down. Between both games, he took a total of 20 shots, only 6 of those from three. So what was he then? I think he was seven, so 6 of 14 from 2 point range. Not horrible, but much better at Arkansas. And again, these settings, but 80% at the free throw line, 4 out of 5. That's in line with what he shot at Arkansas. He's a good free throw shooter. So that's what it looks like. So again, just real quick, I asked specifically my NBA scouts. Here's the new intel, just about Billy Richmond III and Malik Thomas, and they are still working on. So out of the 4 that I'm talking to right now, 3 of them are with teams. One of them is an agency scout. I kind of told y'all there's a difference, but not really. The NIL agent it's got the same level of knowledge and connections, just not formally working for a team, working for an agent because they're trying to figure out who to rep. So of those 4, 2 of them, and they're both with NBA teams. I got some feedback today after these scrimmages. Now, all of these scouts are working on their final reports. That stuff's going to continue. So I didn't ask them to give me a draft range right now because they're not there yet. They want to drill that down with comparing these players and what other players did to either help themselves surge ahead of these guys or fall behind these guys, whatever. But what I did is just your initial reaction, just looking at them. Do you feel like they should stay in for now, regardless of what your draft grade is, these 2, or come back to Arkansas? And both of them, without hesitation, said, I think it would benefit both to go back to Arkansas. This is a deep, loaded draft class, and both should go back in. The two-parter on this intel is I'm told that Calipari, we know Calipari, if he thinks it's the right time for a player to go on to the next level, he's going to promote that. He's not going to try to convince them to come back when it's not in their best interest. I'm told Calipari, as of now, based on where things stand now, thinks it might benefit both to be back at Arkansas. Now, of course, he wants them back, but again, if it's time for them to go, he's going to push that. But as of now, based on whatever feedback he's getting, he sees it as a benefit to come back for both. So scouts are saying it. I'm told Calipari's thought process on it is there right now as well. Let's see what happens. Remember, these scouts can say whatever they want. The mock drafts are going to start shaking out too once we get in the next couple of days, and we'll see where all that settles and where these scouts actually come in and tell me I've got them late first, or I've got them early second, or I've got them mid second to not draft, whatever. And again, we'll get more information on TB, ACUF as well, but right now we know they're not coming back. So I'm just focused on give me info on the guys Arkansas is pursuing, and that's the feedback so far. So we're going to bring more as we get it. But what I find interesting is Calipari's thoughts, to a couple of these scouts' thoughts so far, and just remember, if there's one team, all it takes is one team to say we're going to give you a guarantee, and then the player and his reps are going to have to decide, is that guarantee good enough for me to stay in, or is the NIL good enough, despite the guarantee, for me to go back to Arkansas anyway? The next part of that is, if you don't have a guarantee, the last thing any agent should be telling their player, if they get through this process, again, May 27th is the deadline to pull out if you want to remain in college. So we're less than 2 weeks away from that deadline. If you get no draft guarantee, but you're seeing mocks and your teams, yeah, we like you, but you don't have a draft guarantee. I'm hoping these agents advise these guys to come back to school and not F around and find out, because that's the tough part. Most of these players that stay in, where it's not clear cut that they're a first round pick, they're staying in because they've already been advised specifically by the teams that are going to draft them. It's not just a guarantee that they will be drafted. The guarantee includes what that contract looks like. I mean, how many players now do you think are going to go ahead and agree to go into a draft because the team's going to guarantee them, yeah, we're going to take you 48th, but we don't have a roster spot. We're going to keep the pick, and we'll put you on a two-way deal. How many players are raising their hand to do that now? That was a thing 4 or 5 years ago. With NIL now, you're not going to see a lot of that. But they're going to be players that are timed out, that have no choice, that'll say, yeah, I'm good with that. They don't have a choice. Players that have choices, the NIL is a big part of it. So let's see what shakes out for these guys moving forward. Here's Buckley joining in. He's been raucous today. He has been very vocal. Yes, he's fed, well fed. He eats too much probably, and that part of that's on me. But I'm okay. So let's get into the next thing here, and I've got to find it. All right, so we did this. Yeah, we got through those stats. All right, let's go international. Okay, so back in on April 30th, so 2 weeks and 2 days ago, remember the Calipari earlier in that week, April 28th, that was a Tuesday, spoke with students and said international, brought up international bigs. And so we started doing our research and we compiled 18 to 20 names of players that we were told on some level Arkansas had interest in, whether it was kicking the tires, getting further down the road, doing Zooms, phone calls. And we've never been able to fully confirm anything beyond just the interest level. And sometimes with some players, it was maybe a little more than just initial interest, but nothing specific to tell us, well, what does that look like? What's going on there? And so here we are with this guy that I talked about again on Thursday, April 30th. So I had a series of 6 names I popped that Tuesday night, April 28th, another 5 the day after Wednesday, April 29th. On the 30th, I went through another 6 names, and lo and behold, here was Gleb Furzov. He's a Russian, 6'10", 230 pounds. It's a typo on that tweet that I put out earlier today. 21 years old, a forward center. He's a 4-5. I consider him more 5 than 4. So I kind of like what I say about Cooper Bowser in terms of how I envision it at Arkansas. More 5 than 4. Mika Mirnan, for now, more 4 than 5. All right. And so this guy, we reported back on April 30th that we had more than one source telling us that Arkansas had some level of interest here beyond, but anything beyond that, we weren't certain on what that would look like. So what was interesting today, I mean, we've been going through bringing international names back up, some more than others. A-list guys for sure have been on the hot topics. We've seen some of them come off the board to other teams, and we've talked about it. And we got one to talk about here in a little bit. But what's interesting is, excuse me, is earlier today, one of the folks that covers Kentucky basketball put a tweet out saying that Kentucky had just made contact with this Gleb Furzov, and then within the tweet, this same reporter included Alabama and Arkansas's teams that have been linked to him. Well, that is true. We reported it again back on April 30th because I had more than one reporting it. And so what's interesting about this is that as a Russian player, along with a guy that we know was effectively committed roughly this time last year, Igor Rizov out of Russia, plays in the same VTB United League in Russia. That is the top pro league in Russia. Both of these guys play in the same league. They're both represented by Rizov's uncle, Stanislav Rizov, who I continue to have back and forth with in terms of Igor. I've reached out to him about Gleb Furzov, and because of the time difference in St. Petersburg, Russia, and where we are now, I'll probably hear back from him tomorrow. He always gets back with me. He doesn't comment to acknowledge any specific school's involvement. I always tell you what, that if the school's not involved, it's just easy for an agent to say, well, we haven't heard from them. We're not talking to them. Instead, and we knew Rezoff was one that Arkansas tried to close on, if not for his visa paperwork trouble, because the staff eventually acknowledged that. Yeah, we were about to announce that, except it blew up because of the visa thing, and we moved on and went a different route. We've gone through all that. So there's a lot of connectivity in terms of that Russian Pro League, who the agents are. Furzov, again, 6'10", 230, forward center, 21-year-old. Now we've got another outlet reporting that Arkansas has been linked to this guy. I've got a DM from an Arkansas fan telling me he's hearing elsewhere that someone's reporting that Arkansas hasn't contacted this guy. That goes contrary to whether they've contacted the player directly or this Stanislav Rizov. It goes contrary to what I was told weeks ago and what this reporting is now. Now, because the international sources, and I'm now up to five that I'm talking to about some of this stuff, it's been awfully quiet. We've said that, other than the initial names of interest. And we just continue to work on it because we brought you intel last night. The intel nugget was Arkansas's not just putting all of its eggs in the Handlot basket for the front line. And so this could potentially be where this is tracking. This guy in that pro league this year, 10.6 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 1.1 blocks, 58.3% from the field, 77.6% free throw shooter. So he checks. I mean, the stats are good at the top pro league in Russia. Young player, turned 21, I think in February, but maybe January. I'm not sure, but it's not, he's not 21 and a half yet, I don't think. Talk about it like months for a baby. But what I like is um, he had a 46 performance index rating, and this is one of those ratings when you talk about efficiency that's used a lot in Euro basketball. A 46 PIR performance index rating, which established a league record. And so the guy's efficient, and we're going to look at some highlights of him. We've looked at Resolve highlights. Both of these are rim hunters, right? We know that about Resolve. We looked at his highlights a few episodes ago, maybe a week or so ago, and that's the one thing that really stands out. This guy to me plays better around the basket than Resolve does. I'm not sure if this guy is longer, but his listed weight is heavier than Resolve, and yet he seems to play, and so he does play seem to me a little sturdier, a little bigger around the basket. Again, both of these guys are vicious rim hunters, but I think this guy too. I could be wrong. I need to see him stand side by side, but just looking at highlights, this guy seems a little longer in the wingspan to me. Again, I have no idea if my instinct is right there or not, but that's just the impression I have. But again, Kentucky, Alabama, Arkansas are the names listed. And I push back on, then push back, reach back out to one of my other international sources because this came out and was told that they also had heard Arkansas and five or six other teams. So that's even another, I guess, intel nugget. Nothing, no more team names given to me there. But again, we can't tell you how far, we don't have any intel to tell you, and this is far along with Arkansas. Can't do that yet, but at least you're starting to get some corroborating stuff that may or may not suggest Arkansas's in the mix here. I know it's clear as mud, and y'all don't like it. You want to pin me down to Arkansas's absolutely moving moving down the road here. No, haven't been able to tell you that with Handlot. We've been able to tell you that, so we tell you if we can or can't. We're giving you as much as we know. All right. So Furzov and Rezov went head to head. They both play in that VTB United, the top level pro league in Russia. They went head to head a few times this season. Both of them had good stats. I don't know if they precisely guarded each other or not. But they're similar position wise in terms of what Arkansas would be looking at. Again, I look at Rezov as a 4-5, and you'd see him get plenty of minutes at the five when he's on the court. Again, I see this guy more as a five than four. But Furzov had a double double in one of those matchups. And again, statistically, when you add up a couple of games, there wasn't a whole lot of discrepancy between the two. And so this guy's a better rim protector statistically than Rezov has been. And so we'll see. We think because the agent Stanislav Rezov has never acknowledged Arkansas's involvement because again, my thought is if Arkansas is not involved at all, you would just say that. And we know again the staff said last year with Rezov. So right now, I'm of the opinion Arkansas has been maybe more than kicking tires on both, and we'll just see if it goes. I do have the impression that in both instances, either or I don't know that there'd be a package deal in Arkansas take two, but I think in each example, the cost to get either player would be less than some of these A-list international bigs that we've spent so much time on. So again, something to think about there as we move forward. All right, more intel coming, much more. I think at least three pieces more. It's a loaded intel segment. All right, here we go. This is an international Twitter account that reported that Alexandra Semidurov, the 6'11 four or five that we knew Arkansas had some level of interest in. We talked about this so many times. This guy watched his highlights. Again, a 4 or 5 at 6'11". And I think just a few days ago we were talking about one of my sources who covers North Carolina basketball. We were having a conversation about Carolina pursuing this guy and Hanlott, and we knew Arkansas was to some certainly with Hanlott and getting down the road, and so on some level with Samodurov, and because of the Mika Murnin dueling track recruitment. Paul Osarui, who may or may not stay 27, he says he is. I'm not trying to give you any suggestion that he may. When I say may or may not, only then I'm not going to rule Cal figuring out a way to get him on campus because he wants to visit Arkansas and North Carolina and trying to talk him into reclass, and who knows. But there's so many players, including another one at the high school level we're going to talk about in a little bit, that these both of these programs are after. So today, this international reporter puts out that Semidurov has in fact committed to North Carolina. Now, I've talked to my same source that covers North Carolina basketball. He said that they're trying to confirm this and haven't. And when we exchanged messages earlier today, or a few hours ago, it wasn't that long ago, still hadn't been able to confirm it. He knows about this reporting coming from an international reporter, but they're working on that. But remember, this is the guy that was telling me it seemed like with Hanlott and this guy, and same when we know this again, those two are a couple that Arkansas after. Not as much information on Semidorov related to Arkansas. And what I said was, what if it turns into one of these situations where Arkansas, by virtue of maybe North Carolina gets one of them, Arkansas then fast tracks to get the other? Well, could this mean that Hanlotten's no longer in the picture with North Carolina, and maybe that helps Arkansas out? We told you a couple of segments ago. It was new until we brought, I think, 2 or 3 segments ago, coming out of the weekend and into the combine, that one of my NBA scout sources was telling me that things had gotten quiet in terms of the North Carolina and Arkansas talk, but the Arkansas talk was still strong in terms of Hanlon, who still, I know, needs the waiver. I know. We don't know where that is. Um, but circling back, after I asked the North Carolina beat writer to confirm, what did he know about this commitment? He said they were still trying to confirm it. Then I pushed back and say, well, what do you think this means in terms of a Hanlon? He said a couple of things. He goes, well, by adding this guy, Carolina still needs a big banger. The same thing we say about Arkansas getting Murnin and Bowser. Where's the five that's bigger, sturdier, you know, 240 plus at minimum type of guy, that's going to be a paint presence, be a space eater, be someone that moves bodies around, not getting moved around. And again, Murnin and Bowser, it's not like they're not. I mean, it's not like they are light as feathers, but still, you know what I'm saying. And so he says that, and then he followed up with, but in terms of the cost to do that kind of business, I'm not so sure that this isn't it for North Carolina on the front line. Remember, they also got Sion Kita, an international big, but also sort of an athletic rim running guy, not a big body, similar to how Calipari recruits frontline guys often. So they've got a couple of frontline guys. I got to go back and look at who all they've got on their roster. They may be in better position front court wise, since they lost Vassar to the NBA draft. But it's interesting to note that this beat writer seems to think North Carolina probably out, just if for no other reason, money wise, even though they need a big body like Arkansas does. So it's just something to monitor. This doesn't have me telling you tonight that Arkansas is now the leader for Micah Hanlotton. And now we're also keeping an eye on Chinyelu, um, in the NBA draft. Did he stay in it? Did he help himself enough to decide to stay in there? Because Florida becomes a player to retain its own guy if he gets that waiver in that sense. How about the visit stuff we talked about? Um, well, I'm missing something here that I thought I brought in here. Where is it? Well, I got to tell you, there it is. There we go. All right, let's talk visit. Well, I mentioned again, it hasn't been quite 2 weeks yet. And I said, a source told me, and this was valued information the way I looked at it, is really good source, telling me that Arkansas was in the planning stages for a visit that would cover sometime in the next 2 weeks. And the first thing I did was what reminded everybody. that Maker was on his Friday visit, departing Saturday. I said there would be time for Arkansas to potentially work a player in for the end of the weekend. Well, we never confirmed any visitor. And we've talked about that. Calipari snuck him in and off campus before, so we can't rule out an invisible visit, cloaked under the darkness of night visit, but we don't think so. And the first thing I told you was, I said, but it gets real busy for Arkansas starting Monday of this past week, or the previous, uh, first, excuse me, starting this week in terms of um, the NBA draft combine. That was one of the evaluation periods. How many coaches would Arkansas send out? And then rolling into the weekend, the first live eval period, which starts tomorrow. I'll be in Memphis at Nike EYBL. I'll be there. Beckham Black. You go down a list. I'm ready to cover it. I'm assuming Calipari and either Chin Coleman probably with him. That's typically who goes with him, but not always. We'll see who all's there with Arkansas and are they there for a couple of days, only one. But we told you it was going to get really busy because of these, Chin Coleman all week in Chicago, like he was a year ago when Carter Knox was going through the NBA draft combine. So we set you up for all that. We said it's not likely that Arkansas would have a visitor this week or even through the weekend. Now, the one way that Arkansas could see a visitor, well, let's say that Calipari and the staff go out and hit it hard Friday and Saturday, and then get back to Fayetteville Saturday night at some point or early Sunday, and could work a visitor in because you're going to have a dead period. It's another thing we walked through when we were talking about a potential visitor. Dead period starts the 20th and runs to the end of the month, the 31st. So you can't have visitors. And so the 15th, Friday through Sunday, the 17th, is this live eval session. And then the 18th and 19th, Monday and Tuesday of next week, are still a quiet period where you can bring visitors in. And so we said maybe there would be an opportunity there, if not sometime on Sunday, if the staff gets back early in the weekend when they could stay on the road Sunday if they wanted to for this live eval. But a lot of times coaches will peel out late Saturday or early in the morning. You could do something like that. So here's the new intel. I'm told that there's a potential for a visitor still. Again, the dead period's coming up really quickly, so you'd have to squeeze it in there. And again, I don't see Arkansas bringing in a visitor, not this week while combine's been going on, and not this weekend when the staff's going to be out. And the staff's been out. We told you that. Chin's in Chicago. Cal's been out and about, he's not been set up to host a visitor, but we telegraphed that. We forecast that for you when we brought the intel to begin with. And we told you that's why the 2 weeks was set up that way, because there were little pockets where Arkansas could. So if you're trying to facilitate a visit or plan one, you might run into some real hurdles because you're going to be gone a lot in a big chunk of that time. So that could be, and I think that's why it was in the planning stages and not already set. But I think Arkansas is prepared. I'll put it that way, to host a visitor. It's why we brought it up to begin with. Again, nearly 2 weeks ago. All right, there was more intel for you here. Here's the last part of it, and then I'm going to get out of here. We're getting close to 10 p.m. Thursday night. All right. Anthony Spratt Jr., the youngest player, according to Calipari, that he's ever offered a scholarship to. He's out of Benton, class of 2028. He's on the Nike EYBL circuit playing in that Brad Bill Elite program. And this is 6'6" wing. Helped Benton High School as a ninth grader win a state title this past season. It was state playoffs, state tournament. Didn't win the state championship. But source told me today, reached out, and I put this tweet out earlier, that North Carolina head coach Michael Malone and associate coach Chuck Martin plan to be courtside this weekend to watch 2028 wing Anthony Spratt Jr. of Benton. And this will again will be during the Nike E16 live eval. He's on the 16U level. He's not playing up with the 17s. So he'll be a high school junior next year. Just like J.J. Andrews did the same thing. He played on the Nike E16 for Brad Bill Elite with Mika Miernan that brought the first ever of any age level Peach Jam championship in July 2 years ago, two summers ago. And J.J. Andrews was on that team. So right now, this is the same stage, age-wise and level-wise, for Anthony Spratt Jr. Now, I expect Arkansas will probably be courtside as well this weekend. I'll be reporting everything to you. I'm your boots on the ground. I will get a shit ton of intel about everything: portal, waivers, anything left in the portal. Robert Miller III, out of LSU. Is he committed or signed anywhere yet? You know, we were hearing a lot of momentum from Miami. Same with Rezoff, whose name we talked about tonight. But high school players, maybe potential reclasses, all kinds of stuff. We're going to be bringing it. The intel's just going to roll in. We brought you a lot tonight. No, we can't tell you Arkansas leads for anybody tonight. Can't tell you that who the visitor is. We've not been able to figure that out. We were thinking, guessing before, and told you we didn't know. But that Arkansas is still prepared, and so are they still in the planning stages? Do they get it worked out and they're going to get it done? Are they going to sneak it in? Have they already gotten someone in? And we just didn't know about it. Again, I've ran through all those possibilities with you here tonight, just a few moments ago. All right. Thank you again for joining me on HogvilleNET Hoops. I'm your host, Kevin McPherson. You haven't done it already, please hit subscribe, like, and share. It helps us out. Please hype up the content if you like it. Be sure to turn your notifications on. Put comments after the fact. We appreciate everybody. Hope you're getting closer to your weekend. I hope you're looking forward to it and getting through your week okay. And again, we're going to be back on sometime tomorrow, probably from Memphis. I'm going to be getting on the road early, and so I'll probably figure out where I'm going to set up to do a show tomorrow. With again, I plan on bringing tons of intel on little goodies that I learned. Until next time, be great in all your endeavors. We appreciate all of you. We'll see you soon.